Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm so excited that you guys continue to join me. You continue to join in on the conversation of racial reconciliation and what we can do to get to a point of agreement or to just get to a point of understanding. I just want to say thank you so much for continuing to like and subscribe and sharing the videos. And I just really pray, my heart's desire is that we reach a place of reconciliation just within races, and that we can just be our eyes be open to the fact that no one is the enemy but the system. The system is the enemy. The system needs to change for us to change. I feel like I can't ask you to fight with me if you don't understand what you're fighting for. And honestly, that is the basis of this YouTube channel, and hopefully I can give you guys some fun stuff soon. Meeting my family and my husband and all that good stuff. He's great. But today I want to talk about an all-time favorite argument to deflect, and it is black on black crime. And I have looked into this quite a bit, and as always, I will put links in the description box so that you can read yourself. I'm all for educating. I don't have time to read you all of the things, but I do believe we can educate ourselves and we can understand just different aspects of things like black on black crime, and really why that really isn't an argument, and why we're gonna debunk that today. I'm gonna do a series on this YouTube channel called Mythbusters. And this is the first of the series, is black on black crime. And how do we bust the myth of black on black crime? How do we bust the argument of black on black crime? And like I said, it's obviously a deflection tool to not focus on that. The argument is, if black people, why do you care about this when black people are killing each other? And the reality is that all races are killing each other. And I think we have to take a look at some numbers and take a look at just some stats to kind of see what's going on and see the whole picture. Black on black crime is not a valid argument if we're not looking at the entire picture, because the entire picture does count. So like I said, black on black crime is usually the argument when we talk about systemic oppression or we talk about police brutality. It's usually a deflection tool to say, well, if you guys are killing each other, why do you care about this when black on black crime is so prevalent? Here's the thing. Black on black crime, any intra-racial crime, is due to proximity. So I want you to keep that in mind. Intraracial crime is due to proximity. What that means is that the closer you are to someone, a lot of times, the closer someone is to someone, they're most likely to be a victim of that person. Meaning, black people, in this instance, are usually around other black people. Just take a look at your circle of friends, whatever color you are, whether you're Latino, whether you're black, white, Asian. Take a look, just take a mental account of who your friends are. And I can bet you that probably 90% of the people can say that majority or a lot of people that they're around, whether it be spouse, whether it be kids, whether it be friends, is the same color as you are. That's actually a huge thing to take into account, because that tells us that crime rates are due to proximity, right? So whether you have black on black crime or white on white crime or Latino on Latino crime, it is due to the fact that we are closer. Normally, birds of a feather. You've ever heard that saying, birds of a feather flock together? This is kind of similar to that. Black people are usually black people. White people are usually white people. That is the basis of this argument. We also have to take into account that crime doesn't equal murder, okay? Because if we're taking into account the population and the murderers, we have to think that there are black people or white people. You have serial killers, for instance, that one person commits multiple murders, okay? If one person commits multiple murders, obviously you have someone like a Ted Bundy who killed, more than one person. It's obvious that him being a murderer to the crime rate is not going to elevate it because he's just one person. So that we have to keep in mind as well. We also have to see that crime doesn't necessarily mean, like I said earlier, murder. Okay? What that means is means we have crime robbery, we have crime burglary, we have crime vandalism. And so we have to think when we're talking about crime, or what the FBI identifies or describes as crime, that crime literally means illegal, all the things that are done illegally, obviously, a whether it be victimless or with a victim, okay? So that's something to take into account as well. And since we're looking at that factor, we also have to then look at how many people hands in cuffs. So if you haven't already, there is a phenomenal documentary on Netflix. It is the Kalief Browder story. And I'll give you a quick run through. So what happened with Kalief Browder is that he was walking home from a party. He was 16 years old, and he was stopped by the NYPD. And it was a guy that said that he had stolen something from him, stolen a backpack. And so they arrest him. They take him to jail. He never gets a trial. He never gets to see a judge. They keep moving his trial. There's a bond set for him, okay? They constantly go back and forth. They say to him, you know, if you just admit to doing this, we'll give you time served. Well, he proclaimed his innocence the entire time. Hey, I didn't do this. I wasn't the one who, you know, stole from him. And Kalief Browder sat in jail for 3 years until he was fully exonerated, in a sense, of the crime. So I say that because Kalief Browder was technically a statistic of a black on black crime, even though he did not commit the crime. That brings me to my next point. Black people are 7 times more likely to be exonerated of a crime. Not overturned conviction, exoneration. And I think that's important to note here. So we have to see what an overturned conviction is versus an exoneration. And so an overturned conviction or an acquittal of a crime doesn't mean that that person didn't necessarily do the crime. It just means that there was not enough proof to convict them, okay? What an exoneration is that someone is completely absolved from the crime, meaning that there was actual proof, even though they were convicted, that they did not commit that crime. It was beyond a reasonable doubt. Not only that, but a lot of times with DNA evidence, as we can see with things like the Central Park Five, where they were arrested, they were tried, they were convicted of a crime, and then they were DNA exonerated from that crime. So they sat in jail for, I think the longest one was like 13 years, for instance, and it was found out that they did not commit that crime. Black people are 7 times more likely to be exonerated of a crime, okay? And I think that says a lot here, because we have to remember, this brings us back to the point of the systemic oppression and the systemic racism that our country really thrives off of, especially the prison system. And if you have a chance, if you haven't looked at it yet, please, please, please watch 13th. It's the 13th Amendment. It's on the 13th Amendment, rather, and it's on Netflix. It's a phenomenal documentary, and it's literally just a snapshot of what happens during the Nixon term and the Ronald Reagan term. And that brings us to another point. So we have to see that with the war on drugs. And I know we've all heard the war on drugs during Ronald Reagan's term. For instance, in the documentary goes over this, about the difference between crack and crack cocaine. And what was happening, people were getting higher sentences for the crack rock than the sophisticated powder of cocaine. The administration as a whole kind of figured out was that Black people were more likely to carry a crack rock. And so they made that term, with people that were carrying the crack rock, they made the sentences rather higher in prison than they did for the sophisticated cocaine, because white people were more likely to be carrying the cocaine than the crack rock. If you don't know anything about drugs, they're pretty much the same thing. They're just in 2 different forms. They're the same exact drug. The only difference is that Black people were more likely to be carrying the rock and white people were more likely to be carrying the cocaine, the actual powder. So we also, since we're looking at that, we have to see that crime rates and statistics are different because Black neighborhoods are over-policed and white perpetrators are undercharged. And so we see things for instance, like the Brock Turner situation, where you had Brock Turner that was seen committing a rape. He committed that rape. He was charged, convicted for the rape, and he only served a couple months in jail. Where you have, for instance, the Central Park Five that were also tried, did not have enough evidence, so they were coerced to confess. And I think the longest term sentence was 13 years that they had. And so we see instances like that where you'll have the same crime committed, which I'll make sure I leave that here, the same crime committed with a white perpetrator and a black perpetrator. Let's just use that as an example. So you have the perpetrators, and what happens is they have the same background, they've convicted of the same things, they have the same rap sheet, but you're seeing where the white perpetrator is undercharged, or the charge in the sentence does not equal the black perpetrator. So I believe it's like 20% higher sentences for black criminals that were committing the same offense with the same background, the same rap sheet that we were seeing with that black on black crime and that crime rate when it comes to those things. All that to say, the argument of black on black crime just is not relevant to the situation. And honestly, it's a deflection tool. It's a deflection tool because we would rather believe that our country is free from this stuff and that the systemic oppression of racism does not happen anymore. And obviously, I know the argument is, well, slavery is not around anymore. Slavery's ended. Segregation's ended. Just things like that. If we look at the picture as a whole, the argument does not stand. Yeah, that's our first Mythbusters episode. Thank you guys so much for liking and subscribing. And I'm so honored and blessed that you continue to share and that you're continuing to learn and that we can work together to come to a common goal, that we can work together to just be better and to learn and to understand that no one is the enemy and that we do have a system that we need to improve on and we need to work on. You guys are amazing. I love you guys. I'll see you next video and have a blessed and amazing week. Love you guys. Bye.